Could Dax run a country? Every janitor has a story about how he got out, but not many of them end with a Juno nomination and a country song with Darius Rucker on it. But Daniel Nwosu Jr., the man the internet knows as Dax, somehow got from mopping floors to millions of streams, and now I want to ask a completely ridiculous question and take it dead seriously. Could Dax actually run a country? Not as a mayor, not as a city councilman. I mean the whole thing. Cabinet meetings, state dinners, nuclear codes. Dax, live from the podium, running the entire operation. Because let's be honest, the first press conference alone would break the internet, just as his music breaks babies' ears. You can name is Cinnamon. My name is Otto, name is Cinnamon. Reporters lined up asking about trade policy and foreign relations, and Dax just walks up. You are not my dog. I said it before. My name is Cinnamon. Up, down, up, down. Cabinet meetings would not look like cabinet meetings anymore. They look like a writing session. Somebody brings up the budget deficit, and instead of spreadsheets, Dax is pacing around the room saying, you are not my dog. I said it before. My name is Cinnamon. Up, down, up, down. Say less, say less. I got a hook for this, Dax says. And by the end of the meeting, the deficit hasn't moved, but somebody's already got a beat picked out. State dinners would be a different kind of chaos. Some world leader files and expecting formal diplomacy, wine pairings, careful small talk, and instead Dax is standing up mid-course going, nah, but for real, let me tell you about the time I was a janitor. And now the prime minister of G7 country is getting the full origin story before the dessert is even served. The military briefings would somehow turn emotional. God, can you hear me? Just like his song. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. Ah! Someone would walk in the room with satellite images and dead troop movements, dead serious, and Dax listens for exactly 4 minutes before going, man, this is deep. This needs to be a song. And now there's a general standing there wondering if he just watched foreign policy get turned into a hook. Foreign relations in general would be an experience. Some tense phone call with another head of state, so everybody in the room stiff and quiet, and Dax opens with, yo, real talk, how's the family? Completely disarming a room that came in ready for confrontation. Half international diplomacy might actually go smoother. The other half would collapse the second someone brought up actual numbers. Press interviews would stop being press interviews. A journalist asks a hard question about the economy, expecting a dodge, expecting a scripted non-answer, but instead gets 15 minutes of brutally honest and completely unfiltered truth about struggle, faith, and how nobody believed in him. None of which answers the original question, but somehow the interview goes viral anyways. Campaign season would basically be a world tour. Instead of town halls, arenas, instead of pamphlets, mirth drops. People aren't showing up to hear a stump speech. They're showing up because tickets are $50 and there might be a surprise verse. Turnout would probably be break records. Whether anybody actually remembers the actual platform afterward is a separate question entirely. The economic policy meetings would be where things really start to wobble. Someone explains inflation, someone explains interest rates, and Dax is nodding, taking it all in, and then says something like, okay, but what if we made saving money feel like a flex? And an entire team of economists just has to sit there and process that in real time. Crisis moments, though, this is where it might actually work. Something goes wrong publicly, some scandal breaks, some disaster hits the news. And instead of hiding, instead of a lawyer-approved statement, Dax just gets in front of a camera and says exactly what happened. No spin, no dodge, the same way he's always talked about addiction and mental health and getting doubted his whole career. That kind of directness would genuinely calm a country down during a crisis instead of making it worse. Coalition building would be the real problem. Every story Dax has ever told is about doing it alone, nobody believing in him, proving people wrong by himself. That's an incredible story for a music career, but it's a much rougher fit for a job that's entirely about convincing people who disagree with you to compromise. You can't out-hustle an opposition party. You can't grind your way through a divided parliament. At some point, somebody has to sit across the table from someone who hates every idea you have. And I did this myself, doesn't work in that room. Eventually, there'd be someone, an actual national anthem rewrite, unofficially, whether anyone approved it or not. Somebody in the studio going, wait, hear me out. And by the next morning, half the country's walking around humming a new hook that nobody voted on. You are not my dogma. Said it before. This country's name is Dax. That's what the national anthem would be. So here's the honest answer. Could Dax run a country? Not on day one, and probably not without an entire team keeping the actual policy machine running behind the curtain. But if you're asking whether the underlying traits are there, the discipline from grinding for years with nobody watching, the resilience from being doubted his entire career, the ability to stand in front of people and be completely direct even when it's uncomfortable, that part is actually more real than you'd expect walking into this video. The weak spot isn't charisma. It's the great thing that made him great in the first place. Doing it alone. You are not my dog. I've said it before. Dax, you cannot run a country.